Will Goldstein here, thekingscourt.com. Chance to subscribe down there by hitting the button. It's free and it'll draw other people here. I'm a musician, and so you can always check out my music at thekingscourt.com or the 12 links at my channel page for YouTube. Doing Screwtape letters by C.S. Lewis. This is number 30. I'm giving this one the title Exploiting Objective and Subjective Reality. The whole idea is that the demons are using the truth of what really happens in reality and using that to their advantage. As I go through the story, you'll see the means by which the demons are able to do this. The patient's behavior during the first raid, this is in the war, was the worst possible. Being very frightened, he thinks himself a great coward and feels no pride. He has done everything his duty demanded and even more. All you can produce is a burst of ill temper, excessive cigarette smoking, and forgetting of his prayers. The man actually is in war, and he actually did above the call of duty, so the demons say, which he probably did in that case. They were actually telling the truth. But the point that they're making is that he feels that he was a coward. So he didn't do enough, which often happens in life. We do everything that we can, but we feel guilty as though we didn't do enough. And that's just the work of demons. We do what we can do, and that's it. And God doesn't expect anything more. Not everything works out just perfect in life. Any suggesting that your intentions should be taken into account may bring a charge of heresy against you. The justice of hell is purely realistic, concerned only with results. They succeeded in drawing your soul to hell, or they didn't. All they care about is the results at the end of the day. In hell, or he's not. You still expect results from the patient's fatigue. Fatigue can produce gentleness, quiet of mind, and even something like vision. Men led by it into anger, malice, and impatience makes grounds for efficient tempers. Moderate fatigue is better for peevishness than absolute exhaustion. The man is fatigued, and depending on how the situation evolves during that period of fatigue from being in the war, if things persist causing irritation to him, then he can erupt with violence and temper and become impatient. In other words, he's had too much. He's been taken to the limit, and that's all he can stand. Then after that, he may become absolutely exhausted and then actually just sit there in a gentle sort of mood because he's just exhausted even by his anger. That sort of exhaustion, sitting there in depression after anger, is a common response after someone becomes angry. So peevishness is just being easily irritated. So the whole idea is any circumstance at this point, he's at the limits, can bring him to become very irritated and, like I said, potentially violent temper. It is not fatigue that produces anger, but unexpected demands on a man already tired. So he's already exhausted, and then more is coming. And like I said, he just can't take it anymore. Men think they have rights. The sense of disappointment can be turned into a sense of injury. After giving into despair and there's no relief, then the danger of humbled and gentle weariness begin. You can only even be angry so long, and then eventually you come to that point of humility, like it says here, and weariness and a gentleness of spirit, because you don't even have the energy to muster up the anger. You're just totally exhausted. So the demon's response is feed him with false hope, how much he will enjoy his bed tonight, exaggerate weariness, make him think it will be over soon. Men feel they can endure no longer at the moment when it is ending. How many times have you felt like you can't take it anymore? You finally freak out, and then you realize that it is exactly at that point that things actually turn for you. And they may or may not turn for you. The demons are attacking the man's patience, how much he can endure. When will he finally crack? The thing is to avoid his total commitment. Let his inner resolution be to bear whatever comes for a reasonable period. Let the reasonable period be shorter than the trial is likely to last. In attacks on patience, chastity, and fortitude, the fun is to make the man yield when relief was almost in sight. The whole idea is a time limit on it. I will be patient up until this point. And of course, that never works with God. God just demands patience, and there's no timetable, and you never know. We spend our life often waiting for God to deliver on the promises that we hope that He will. And honestly, in our prayers, there's no guarantee that He'll answer the prayers that we want, and we may wait and wait and wait, and finally our prayers are answered. We also might wait and wait and wait and wait, and the answer to our prayer is not what we hope for. And it's not in God's will that this is done. It's best not to put any timetable on your prayers and expectations when dealing with God, because He doesn't answer to your timetable. Fatigue makes women talk more and men talk less. Secret resentment can be raised from this. Attack his emotions. When he sees human remains on a wall, this is what the world is really like. Religion has been a fantasy. He's in war, so when he sees human remains plastered on a wall, so he's looking at these dead bodies, then that's attacking the reality that he is experiencing and seeing that and the horror of seeing that. And then they're using that to say this is the reality and your religion is a fantasy. Real could mean the bare physical facts, or it can mean the emotional effect those facts will have on a human's consciousness. Our business is to keep the two going at once so that real can be placed as it happens to suit us. So they're trying to adjust reality. Reality is what really actually did happen, but they need to present it in a way in his mind and trick his mind or attack his mind so that he always looks to the negative side of the reality that he is truly experiencing and that he is actually seeing dead bodies. They're just trying to make every situation suit their needs. For experiences which can make men happier or better, only the physical facts are real, while elements are subjective in experiences which discourage or corrupt. Spiritual elements are the main reality. Thus, in birth, blood and pain are real, the rejoicing only subjective. In death, terror and ugliness reveal what death really means. Hatefulness of a hated person is real. When there's blood and pain, these are real. Terrorize his mind by seeing this is the reality that can actually happen. Death is a reality, and it's ugly and terrible, and this is what's truly happening. He can't deny it. Whereas anything that might bring any relief or happiness, then that's all just subjective. You've been tricked. The reality is the terror that you see, not the fact that something good can come out of what has happened that's terrible. For example, something that good can happen. The Second World War was a horrible thing. What good came out of it? Hitler was stopped. The Jews got their homeland in Israel. That's something, at least from my perception, that's good. Even in the midst of terrible circumstances, there can and often is something beneficial and good that can be a result of the terrible circumstances that we have to endure. Loveliness of a loved person is a subjective haze. Wars and poverty are really horrible. Peace and plenty are facts men happen to have certain sentiments about. Creatures want to eat the cake and have it too. Thanks be to our labors, they pay for the cake and don't eat it. Your patient will regard the sight of human entrails as reality and his emotion at the sight of happy children or fair weather as mere sentiment. So again, they're trying to make the terrible things reality. When the man happens to see something like the happy children, well, that's just a passing moment. It's fair weather today, but tomorrow's terrible. So in other words, they're trying to keep the focus on negativity and the terrible things that happen in life and keep him away from any truth that positive things can be an outgrowth of the terrible things that can indeed happen in this life.